Keionte, I think the question everybody needs to know right now is, are you really sleeping at the facility?
Now that was from fall camp. Me, Malachi, Tony, um, Dalen Upshaw. We slept here every day of fall camp. And it was for me. It was just to be in the moment and just when I first came on my visit, I looked around in here and I just felt like, yeah, this is something I've done. I've done it for multiple years, but sleeping in this thing was definitely different. Looking up at the banners and all the legends that came before me, was just something I wanted to do. Just take the time to you know hone in and focus and be where everybody was. Look up and you see Ed Reed and different names, and just it was something I just wanted to take in.
Thank you.
All right, next up we'll go to Barry Jackson.
Hi, Keionte. If you had to explain why you think you have transformed from a good college player to a great college player, you'd point to what series of things this year?
I would just think the trials and tribulations I went through last year, of note, not being at my lowest point, playing the sport, and I just feel like I took the time to focus and look at everything that I felt like didn't go as good as I wanted to go, and I made a decision in my mind that I wasn't going to allow that to happen again. So my biggest thing was just making sure I could find some comfortability, a place that would allow me to have fun and be able to play football. And that was my biggest thing. And when coach called when I was in the portal, and having the familiarity with Cristobal before Coach Harris and Coach E, it just felt like that would allow me to be super comfortable with guys that while I was at the lowest point of my career in football, being not the lowest point, but being at the lowest level, of football, and they all believed in me. I just felt like that was a place I feel like I can go because all those guys believed in me when no one didn't.
And is there any technique change that you've made, something that Zach Etheridge or Corey noted that you think has helped?
No, I definitely feel like, coming here and, being around Coach Etheridge and Coach Harris, and just the game, the knowledge they have. I feel like they're two of the best defensive back coaches in the country. You can't ask for a better pair of guys with the knowledge and all the football they've seen and the guys that they had before. And that they were able to translate and develop. So I feel like, just the mesh of my tools and what I've already had mixed with the knowledge and the brains, with behind the coaches and all the things that I'm being able to learn and just transcribe, and just the small tweaks Coach Harris has been able to make, and just certain things he's attacking in all of our games is you're seeing translate on the field.
Thanks, Keionte.
Thanks, Keionte. We'll go to David Hale from ESPN.com.
Hey, Keionte. I was hoping to follow up on your sleeping at the field answer. You said two other guys that were there with you, Dalen and Malachi. What did it take to get two freshmen to go sleep at the facility with you? How did wide receivers end up sleeping with a DB? And what were those nights like where the three of you were together there?
Yeah, I think it was just something fun. I mean, I slept in here the first night, and once they found out that I was doing that, there was something that they were attracted to. Two young guys that are one of the best right out of their careers, and they're just looking up to me. I mean, that was one of the biggest things. My goal when I got here was to not just come in and just try to be the older guy, trying to take over, but just to build relationships with the guys. Offense, defense, special teams. Just go around the locker room, speak to everybody. Build that relationship up, and then that translated to me being super cool with everybody, just trying to talk to everybody, shake everybody's hands. You never know who's having a bad day or anything going on, so I just want to be one of those guys, just speaking to everybody, make sure everybody's having a good day. But yeah, Malachi, once they see me, going in, we just go in, and we wake up, handle our work, and at the end of the day, get some time, go watch some film. You're just in the facility. I feel like it's very like, you're practicing all day, so there's really no point of going home. So I just found that, something, a routine is, just have fun. It'd be days, Dalen would be not too tired, so he'd run laps in the in the IPF, or just trying to get tired before he goes to bed. It was a super fun moment. Just to be there and just to watch them. Got a chance to, just explain all my trials and tribulations to them while we were in here, and just telling them how, things change super fast, and just to always stay focused on, what they can control, and just different things, just picking their brains. They were allowed to pick my brain, and we are just going at it, and it was super fun, being able to work with Malachi every day, and then, be able to, just get cool again. So I think we built our relationship there. We got really close. So it was just something that was super fun.
Thanks, Keionte. We'll go to Brandon Marcello from CBS.
Yeah, Keionte, you mentioned sitting there in the facility and looking up the banners and knowing that guys like Ed Reed came through there, Ray Lewis, Michael Irvin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's it like actually seeing those type of guys in the facility, interacting with the players, and then also just kind of how they've become part of the team, for that matter, on the sidelines for all these big games? Yeah, and any stories you might have in your interactions with them.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's a different feeling. And I think it just goes, and it's a testimony to how much the U means to them. And I think seeing that, me as an older guy, it just shows me that, how much the U was able to do for them, and how thankful they are that, they could be doing anything in the world, you know what I'm saying? And they're supporting their team, and they're supporting their college. So it's just something that, just makes you want to go harder, and it makes you, honestly take a look back at the U in general. The school, the facility, all that it can do for a person, and how it turned, a boy into a man for them. And I feel like that's something that, when you see guys on the sideline like that, it's just a simple reminder of how much you meant to them, and how hard they go for their school.
I know you weren't around there last year, but what attracted you to Corey Heatherman's defense, and how would you explain it? And just because it's been quite the turnaround night and day from last season.
I would just say just how fast you're able to play. He's allowing you to go out there and just play fast. And I feel like that was something that was super big for me, of just being able to just go play fast. But then also, just a great scheme, with the pieces aligned. I think it was something that, definitely jumped off to me, of, how he was looking to use the nickel. And that was one of my biggest things, of, just making sure, because teams use the nickel different at all schools. So, this is the way he was, planning to use the nickel in his defense. I could just, see it all aligning. And I felt like exactly where we're at now at this point was exactly where I felt like I saw at the beginning in recruiting.
Thank you, Manny. You're up. Manny Navarro.
Hey, Keionte, congrats on the performances. Curious, there seems to be a theme in these playoffs where a lot of underrated guys have become big stars, right? I mean, you see the guy who won the Heisman Trophy was a 2-star. You see, obviously, Trinidad and where he comes from, the D2 ranks, right? And your story, can you tell us your story, Snow College? What happened to you coming out of high school, and how you kind of made your way?
Yeah, I feel like, so I was a late bloomer, going out of high school. So, things are just super different for me, as far as recruiting wise goes. Was a very under recruited guy. So it caused me to not more say, I would say I didn't think, I was going to be able to go to college. So, I was just playing football because I loved it. And I feel like that caused me to, slip in the classroom, and just be wanting to, be the cool guy, and go around and, be balling on Fridays and come back to school. It never really, shocked my mind that I was going to be able to go to college. And then I was able to, get a little growth spurt, and things start, turning around. And I feel like my senior year, was something that, was super heartbreaking, because you start balling your senior year, and, coaches are pulling you out of class every other day. And, it's times I would have to go into the room with the office, and stop the coach, and literally tell him, my grades are not where they need to be. So it was definitely something that was a humbling experience for me, just to realize, man, I could have done something so great, and have, multiple friends going to Division I schools and stuff like that. So in my mind, it was just, junior college. And, at first it was, my plan was to, go down there in San Diego and go to one of the junior colleges in San Diego. And then I received a call from Snow College, and they offered me a scholarship, and that was something that was so crazy to hear. And he was asking me, what am I looking for in my next school? And I was just telling him, just a place where I can focus on my education and just play football. And he was like, well, there's no better spot than Ephraim. And I didn't even take a visit or do anything. I just told him I'm coming. And I went up there to Snow College, and man, it was just a crazy experience. One street light, one McDonald's, one Walmart, super small town. nothing to do. I had to fall in love with, the grind and the work. Was able to, meet multiple people with harder stories than mine. I was coming in there thinking, I was having a tough time, and man, I'm so down. And I met some people that, just had, crazier stories than me. And it was just a super growing moment for myself, and just grew super much, and was able to, my first year, come in and create some traction at corner, and get a couple offers. And then, the next year, so we ended up playing that spring that year and that fall that year. So I basically got 2 for 1 because of COVID. And that was when, colleges start coming in, the offers start coming in. I was able to become the number 1 corner in the country, JUCO. Coach Etheridge came to Snow College multiple times. I don't remember correctly, but I don't think, the plane has ever, traveled that over in that area. And, just fall in love with Coach Etheridge, multiple talks with him. He's super consistent with the recruiting process, and just the plan he had, as far as development goes. And I just, fell in love with it. Another crazy story, I was getting recruited by Cristobal at the time. And that was actually the year Cristobal transferred from Oregon over, to the University of Miami. And, that was super big for me because, to be strictly honest, I was, Cristobal was, in my top list is at Oregon, and I really liked what Cristobal had going on at the moment, with the Oregon program and what he's seen with me. But, ultimately ended up going with Coach Etheridge. Just grinded out when I first got there. I wasn't able to get to Auburn until, actually, it's just super funny, the summer of that year. So I got to campus like right before fall camp started. Was able to, grow and learn, Coach Etheridge, with the development, was able to get some early playing at nickel. And I came in as a corner, but, at the end, it was like, we had 2 corners coming back, Nehemiah Pritchett and DJ James. And I just, sat down with Coach Etheridge, and I just told him, man, I want to play football. It doesn't matter the position or where it is. And I just asked him where the fit was. And he said, we're looking for a nickel. And that moment forward it was full nickel. And, I seen my game change over to nickel. And, Auburn went by. Things ended up really going too good last year. And was able to, get the opportunity to graduate and do some things I wanted to do in 23. I felt like, I had a moment where I could have came out, but I felt like I just, didn't really get to do what I wanted to do in college. So, that was my things, certain things like walking the stage and being able for my little brothers and sisters to be able to see that, and the people that looked up to me to be able to see that. So that was something that, was interesting to be able to come back in 24. So I did that. In the 24, things didn't go good. Can't put the blame on anybody but myself at the end of the day. And then, literally went from Senior Bowl to having a Hulu Bowl invite in 24, and didn't know, where my career was going at the time, but I was focused on being able to turn around no matter however it was going to go, go to the Hulu Bowl and play myself up and, get the job done. And then, man, one day I just looked at my phone and it said JUCO rule. And I literally called one of my friends' dad, which is a lawyer, and I asked him about it, and I asked if I was going to be eligible for it, and he was explaining it to me, and he was thinking so. And this is like, I literally have my Airbnb, everything, already, situated as far as getting ready to transition to the next level. And they were like, man, you get another year. And I just was like, I just looked at my phone for so long, and I'm just so grateful for, being able to get another chance. I mean, I can't make that up. Like, you don't get another chance and at this thing too many times. So, with that year, I prided myself again. I went back and took a decision, and I felt like, if I'm going to gamble on anybody, I'm going to gamble on myself, so I decided to take a bet on myself, and come back an extra year. And, I felt like, time is of the essence. You only get to play college football one time. You get, different amounts of years and stuff like that. So I know, people are going to say, oh, well, he's older and stuff like that. But I just felt like at the end of the day, it was the best decision I felt like to make for myself, to be able to prove to everybody that I am who I think I am. And so I took the time to just focus on myself in 25. I felt like I sat back, took some time to feel like write down everything I felt like didn't go as good as I wanted it to go. Looked at myself first, didn't look at anybody else or any other things that caused the year to go bad. And I just went to work. And I feel like going through that year, last year, everything that went wrong and feeling like I was so high and being so at the bottom of everything and going into games and, literally not playing at times. And it was definitely something that was just, I'm so grateful for. I feel like I needed that year, and it taught me so much, and it shows today in this game because it like I said before at the beginning of the year, it has to happen. Like it's not that it's any other choice. So I just take my pride in that, becoming and being a leader, being the guy I am, being Keionte, having fun, smiling, making sure I'm cheering everybody up, keeping everybody motivated, and just having fun playing football again. So I feel like that, that's the Keionte story in a short spill. But yeah, that's definitely a story.
That was beautiful, Keionte. Thank you. Thank you for taking us down that road. I had one more question
Yeah.
actually that popped into my head as you were talking. Where would you have
Yeah.
gone if you had the grades coming out of high school? You mentioned a lot of coaches, you had to kind of tell them I don't have the grades, but had you taken care of business, where were you going to end up? Because obviously the story would have been different.
Yeah, I'm not even sure, to be honest. When the coaches started coming along, I didn't have any offers at that point, so it was just like in my head, it was just like I didn't know what was going on.
Which coaches were they? Just if you could mention like who was actually looking at you before they found out the grades.
I can't really say. I know for sure, like Washington, who came to the school, USC, obviously San Diego State, local school, just different schools, like all the time.
Wanted to ask you first about Ole Miss offense. Obviously, they've got a lot of weapons. Trinidad, Lacey. They have a bunch of receivers. Just what is going to be the biggest challenge for the defense on Thursday?
Yeah, like you said, dude, they got a lot of explosive pieces everywhere. You sit down and watch the tape, and you see these guys are great players. I think it's just going to be, being who we are and making sure that we're protecting the back end. Just making sure we're not having any coverage bust. Being on the same page, communicating, just swarming to the ball and playing fast.
And then can you speak to just the pace they play? It seems like they get plays off really quick. What's the challenge there? And could that FSU game that you guys played, specifically that fourth quarter that we saw them go up and down the field, could you guys learn from that game as you head into this one?
Yeah, the past is the past. This team is they roll. And I think it's going to be the biggest thing for us is communication, getting lined up together, and making sure the defense is all playing, the same call. But yeah, they roll.
Next up, we'll go to Brandon Marcello. Brandon.
Hey, Jakobe. I know you weren't there at Miami last year, but what attracted you to come to Miami overall? And then just number two, what did you see in Corey Heatherman in that defense that made you believe that, one, you could be in a playoff, but two, be able to flip that defense kind of overnight from what it was a year ago?
For me personally, when I was in the portal, I knew that this was my last year and I had to make it count. And I just seen the vision with Coach Cristobal, and he's not the type of guy. I think everybody can know he's not the type of guy to BS you. What he tells you is what's going to happen. And he just believed in me as a person first, and then Coach Heatherman, sat me down and explained everything to me, and told me what I can and what I could do for him. And I wanted an opportunity somewhere, and they gave me a great opportunity, and there was no way I could say no to it.
It's not a lot of schools you can go to where you see so much famous alumni. I mean, Hall of Famers, Michael Irvin, Ray Lewis on the sideline. What is that like on game days? And do you have any stories from your interactions with all these alumni around the program?
I'll be honest, man, it's great to have them on the sideline. But during the game, I'm focused on the game. Now I do have an interaction. I had an interaction with Ray Lewis this past week. Pregame, he kind of just told me like, it's just gonna be you, and dog's gonna be a dog, and embraced me and told me that we earned this, and go put it on. But when they're there, the game is great seeing them. But we're not worried about them while they're there. No offense to those guys, we love them, we thank them, but focus with what's in between those four white lines.
Thanks.
Thanks. We'll go to Manny Navarro.
Hey, Jakobe, you have a unique perspective having played against Miami back when Mario was just sort of taking over that 2022 team with Middle Tennessee. And I just want to ask you, man, being on the other sideline to today, just to see where this program has gone, what would you say you remember from that day to where this program is now?
Really different. That Miami team that we played back in 22 was not this team now. And I think Coach Cristobal changed the culture around of this place. I think that's the biggest thing I can say. Like, every player from top to bottom has the same mentality when it comes to this team. When it comes to practice, everyone's approaching it like a business. And back in those days, I guess probably wasn't the same. I wasn't in the building, so I can't really say what was going on, but yeah.
Thank you.
Barry Jackson, you're up.
Hi, Jakobe. Do you think it's fair to say that you've elevated your game from the Middle Tennessee State and the Tennessee days? And if so, why? What has led to that this year?
Yeah, I think I've grown as a player. But each stop has had a specific, piece of me that's helped me out. Like Middle Tennessee, I didn't play safety. I wasn't a safety. So Scott Schaefer, my DC back then, was going with just a raw athlete, trying to get me to learn safety. And he did, and he helped me a lot. And then I got to Tennessee, and I had a great defensive coordinator, great position coach in Willie Martinez that, kind of helped me get my footwork and my tackling and, elevated my game on the physical aspect. And then I got to Miami, and my mindset was my intelligence has changed. My coaches sit me down and explain the why to me on everything. And then you got a guy like Coach Cristobal that'll make you want to run through a brick wall. So.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take one last sweep. Any questions for Jakobe Thomas here? Jakobe, you ever been out to Arizona before?
No, sir. First time.
What are you most looking forward to? Besides the win.
Playing in this game, the opportunity to be at the Fiesta Bowl. The opportunity to still be playing. There's a lot of guys that, would praise to be in my shoes right now. So I'm just gonna.
Yeah, yesterday it had the coaches. It had Mario and then Shannon Dawson and Corey.
All right, sorry about that. If you can please mute your lines if you're not on, we appreciate that. David Hale jumped on late from ESPN.com for you here, Jakobe.
How you doing, David?
I'm good, man. Thanks. I had a quick question for you. I saw on the social medias that Keionte was perhaps sleeping at the facility. Is that accurate? And what does that say about who Keionte is as a player and a person, how he's preparing?
He's a character. I think you guys see that. But yeah, his preparation. We're bought in, dude, and he's extremely bought into the program and everything that we have going on. And he's been that way since I met him. And that's one of my closest friends, my best friend, man. So. Just to see for y'all to see what I've seen every day now as him as a person and a player, it's just amazing to see him growing and finally getting what he deserves.
Manny, did you have a follow-up for Jakobe?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about the challenge of defending Trinidad. Obviously, as a safety, just he does so much with his legs and so mobile. Just you guys have had success against quarterbacks that can run and make plays off the RPO. Just curious what the keys will be in your mind for this game.
Yeah, I mean this guy's different. He extends a lot of plays. So the biggest thing for us is protecting K-Nation, staying deep, making sure nothing gets behind us. And, it's a challenge for our guys up front. And I think they're up for it, but it's a challenge. He's a very, very evasive guy. So, being able to keep him in the pocket, keep him contained, it's easier said than done. But, yeah, he's a special player and he's got a lot of talent. So it's going to be a fun game.
Hi, Wesley. Congratulations on the key sack and the win last week. You've played with a lot of linebackers here. What makes Mo unique? What has he done to help raise this unit?
Probably just his experience. He has a lot of experience in the game and just can affect we can affect the young guys in the group for what's to come. And we know they look up to us, so that's kind of like the biggest thing.
And one other quick thing with regard to him, Jakobe, the physicality of the unit, has it, do you think, improved from last year? Obviously, communications improved defensively, but has the physicality of the group improved? And what players come to mind as far as who's responsible for that mostly?
Man, everybody, the whole defense, and Coach Heatherman, that's what he preaches. That's what we want to make the identity of the defense, of violence. ESV, excitement, swarm, and violence. And he's been preaching that since the offseason. That's why everybody's out there hit like that. It's our identity.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Manny.
Hey Wes, how you doing?
What's going on, man?
Hey, so I'm kind of writing just about the growth of this program, and you were obviously one of the first building blocks. And I asked Jakobe earlier, he played for Middle Tennessee in that game when you were a freshman, to just think about where you guys were at that Saturday to where you are now. Can you put it into words, just what you remember about that day and then getting to this point?
Man, I don't even know if I could find the right word, man. It was crazy, man. That being there at that game and the way that went down, it was heartbreaking. I don't know. I guess to where we are now, man. It's just that's the work. That's the work, man. The work Coach Cristobal put in, and we put in, and look where we at now. And I can't do nothing but thank God, man, and trust and believe in Him, because that was a rough one for everyone. Me, Ahmad, who all was here. That was a rough one for all of us. Losing to Middle Tennessee, and I guess I just gotta thank God that we here to this point, man.
I know obviously talent is a big reason why you guys upgraded talent tremendously, but aside from that, what was the culture in the locker room? What was the key to you that changed?
I say it all the time, man. Just getting a brotherhood right. I feel like we all in there. Every person in our locker room is playing for each other, and that's what it looks like when we out there. It's no one just playing for themselves. And the brotherhood is I feel like is one of the most important things in the team's culture. Like, you got to play for the person beside of you.
Thank you.
Jordan McPherson.
Yeah, hey there, Wesley. You mentioned the brotherhood. Speaking along those lines, we see a lot of the alumni. I mean, we've been seeing them around the facility and on the sidelines last few years. Specifically with this playoff run, what is it meant to see those guys from the past? A lot of the greats, Ray Lewis specifically at your position, being there, supporting you guys, and what's been their message to you guys throughout this run?
Man, it's amazing seeing guys like that on the sideline, man. Like Ray Lewis, come on now. Like it's definitely amazing, man. Just having guys who been there and done that, just to come back and watch our games and just be there and give us words of encouragement, man. It's amazing. And any chance we get to hear what they got to say, we open our ears, man. Like Michael Irvin, for instance, he's in our locker room all the time. He's in there hyping us up, telling us, how they used to get down and stuff like that. So it's always great to just have that, that veteran leadership back on that sideline. Like guys like Ray, Andre Johnson, Michael Irvin. It's always good to have those guys back.
And then with Ole Miss on Thursday, obviously their offense has a lot of big playmakers. Trinidad specifically, just what are going to be some of the challenges he presents? And you guys have faced so many dual threat quarterbacks this year. How much will that help in terms of your preparation?
Ole Miss has a great team, great quarterback, man. We just got to keep the main thing, and attack our preparation, attack the game plan, and everything else to take care of itself.
Okay, Brandon, you're up.
Do you have any interesting stories with Ray Lewis? Any words of encouragement, things that kind of stick out for you, or any of the other alumni that have been on the sideline?
Honestly, I haven't. I didn't even get a chance to speak to Ray this past game, but last time I spoke to him, I said all the time. He told me one thing: hunt is hunting. I haven't forgotten it. So every time I see him, I just remember we got to go out there and hunt, man. We got to hunt as one, as a defense, as a unit, and go play ball.
What is the fundamental difference between Corey Heatherman's defense and the night and day turnaround you guys have had since last season?
I want to say just being able to play more free and more fast, man. When you're able to play more free and fast, you just you just playing, man. You playing ball, you're not really thinking as much, and you're able to make more plays.
All right, Daryl Streeter.
Down street at Footballville. Wesley, what's going on? In that game,
What's going on, man?
what's up? Well, in that game, you had a key sack. Could you explain to us in detail when you got the play in that you knew you were going to blitz, and what were you trying to accomplish? Were you trying to take out the blocker and got a 2-for-1? Just explain all that whole process to us and what happened.
Well, we knew all week that play was designed for the linebacker to get the one-on-one on the running back. So, I read my keys, and once I read what I needed to see, I was in full attack mode. I knew I was gonna run in full speed, and if he tried to block me, then we see what happened. But just go, That was my mentality. Just go, and I went and blew him up and made a huge play for the defense and for the team.